Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of Lessons from the Masters brought to you by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Funds. Friends, according to a Capgemini report, India is home to 2.65 lakh HNIs as on March 2019. These wealthy investors have investable surplus of at least 25 crore, and they need advisors like you to manage their wealth. However, before targeting HNIs, we must know what do they expect from their advisors. In this episode of Lessons from the Masters, we have with us Himanshu Kohli, who will share tips to acquire HNI clients and deal with them. With over 2 decades of experience in private banking and wealth management, Himanshu Kohli is the founder of Client Associates that manages over 800 HNI clients with assets under advisory of $3.7 billion. Himanshu has pioneered the concept of family office in India. In fact, his company deals with some of the most distinguished families of India. Himanshu is passionate about sports and actively pursues cricket and golf. Himanshu is alumnus of Sri Ram College of Commerce, from where he did BCom honors. He received master's degree in finance and control MFC from the University of Delhi. So let us discover the secret of dealing with wealthy. To help us understand the nitty-gritty of this topic, we are privileged to have with us Mr. Rao, who is Senior Vice President and Head of Distribution Development and Investor Education at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mr. Rao has played an instrumental role in expanding distribution footprint of the company. In fact, his company runs a program called Nipun Academy, which has empowered many distributors with knowledge and skill sets. So over to you, Mr. Rao, and welcome both of you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Nishant. Thanks for all the good words, and thanks to Cafe Mutual for making this opportunity. Indeed, I'm glad to be with Himanshu today on taking us not exactly the tips, but it's a conversation how we can deal with the wealthy clients and what we can do. I'm sure most of you, good evening to each one of you for joining, taking time this evening. And this is Lessons from the Masters. This is the 9th episode, and probably you are listening to the music, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, and Happy, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. I think, last week we had Amar Pandit. We are talking about how you can become a happy, rich advisor. And today we are talking about wealthy advisors, wealthy investors. And it's great to be. And somebody can go and see the profile of Himanshu's there. Like, it clearly mentions in the client associates, wealth is only means to an end, and life is a celebration when your wealth is in good hands. Probably to deal with a good healthy clients or wealthy clients, we need to give that comfort that they are in the safe hands. Let us understand from him how that can happen. And Himanshu, thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, it's a great pleasure, and you are truly a pioneer in India to propagate the family offices, and it's India's first boutique is a Client Associates. And today, probably when you started way back in 2002, people would not have understood what it is, why it is. And today, it is there could be a number of it, but it's a lot of courage is required at that point to start something. And I really appreciate the way the old philosophy which you put it as a client centric and living that philosophy for over 2 decades. It's almost 2 decades, and today, friends, Client Associate got over the managers over 850 HNIs, and I'm sure the website says 4.3 billion, but as I speak, it could be a $5 billion because it's going up every day. And to start with, I mentioned we today all our audience are MFDs. There are over now almost touching 200 people on the Zoom and over 800 odd people on the Facebook. Now would like to listen to you and some of those secrets, recipes, how they need to deal with a wealthy and how they can getting HNI clients right. And to put the first question, what are the 3 things that have contributed to your mega success over 19 years? I know the patience and I know the perseverance. It was not easy. The tough days you all had for some time. It is like, today it's good to celebrate, but can you take us through that?
So first of all, thank you, Mr. Rao, for your kind words, for a good introduction about Client Associates, about me. Nishant, thank you so much for introducing me. In fact, Mr. Rao, if you recall, I had come to you to take your advice while opening an office in South. just to get a sense on the market size, potential, wealthy families, how many billionaires over there. I remember that meeting, and I found that meeting quite useful, which really helped us to take that initiative. So I would say your question is three things which have helped us. Uh, so one is, I think it's a love and affection from the entire industry. Uh, People like you who have helped us. Whenever we have come for any information, seeking information, whenever we have come for any help, industry has really helped us a lot. Second, I would say the whole concept of family office, which is what we launched, was a differentiator, which was a value proposition. Uh, it really appealed to some families. That really helped us uh, to pursue. So if you ask me, our dream when we started Client Associates way back in 2002 was to set up the most admired wealth advisory platform from India. Not the largest, not the biggest, but someone, if they have to trust their money with top three brands, can we be one of those top three brand recalls? Not an easy thing because it's not that we had a brand backing, we had an institution backing or a capital backing. It was just the intellectual capital or the passion to do something very, very different. So to achieve that dream, we said, what are the three things which will really help us to achieve that dream of ours to be the most admired? One, create the best team. Because this is a profession which is completely knowledge based. If we have started this, two of us co-founded this, we could be good, but if our dream is to be the most admired, we need to attract like-minded people. Uh, and last 18, 19 years, a lot of energies have gone in terms of building up that team. Today, if I look at, we are a team of about 150 of us with 125 professionals, and all of us have worked with some of the finest brands, domestic, international, multinational banks, non-banks, and all of us have come together to build an institution rather than working for one, purely on the ethos of client centricity or family office. Second, I think very focused approach because right from day one, we were very, very particular that we will be a player of depth rather than breadth. I'll explain this, which means very few relationships. Very few relationships, but it will be a deeper level of engagement. It will be working like a private CFO to them on their complete balance sheet. And
Conference is being recorded.
third, which is the most important, to acquire the best of talent or to work with the best of relationships, and especially in a profession which is of trust and relationship, you need to follow the best of practices, both with internal stakeholders, which is the team, and external stakeholders, which is our clients. And those practices, if you follow, you are able to build these relationships over a long-term period. So a lot of things goes in best practices, but if you ask me what are the top three things in best practices which we follow, or what are the three things which we are known for, it's purely three T's: trust, talent, and transparency. So those have become like a DNA, like a foundation of Client Associates. So these three things, best team, best clients, and best practices, I think are the uh, most important in terms of coming so far and enjoying this journey over last 18 and a half, 19 years.
Fabulous. I think, really congratulations for all that grind of 19 years, but that vision which you had, like, as you put it very rightly, the best team, best clients and best practices. Probably the best teams and best practices gives you the best clients, and it's a vice versa, of course. And the DNA, you put it very rightly, the trust and the talent, you put it, and it's a transparency. I was also going through the DNA of your company. It's like there's a reason today I thought, let me be in the blue suit, and that's a blue ocean strategy which you adapted, and it's that solidarity, and it's go deeper, and that's where you understand. You put it very rightly. Kudos for everything. Like, it's not easy for us to put a vision board and live to that vision board. And I'll just go back a little, and it's like just being a pioneer there way back in 2002. Honestly, any of us would have not have thought that there is a family office culture in India will go up at that point of time. And you worked with one of the best, and you are most celebrated private wealth manager or a banker with either with a Deutsche Bank or DSP Merrill Lynch, and it's like it's a dream jobs. I mean, leaving that dream job and taking some venture into founding the client of States family office. Probably what made you to do that? Today I understand. Today there could be another 100 of us can inspire and get do it, but it was not easy in 2002. I mean, how did it all start?
Right. So again, I would say it was one of the toughest, but the best decisions which we would have taken. It was not easy to give up a cushy job. Deutsche Bank, DSP Merrill Lynch, they are the best of brands. But what we felt, though we have worked with some of the finest brands, there is a conflict between the model, what clients wants and what the institutions wants. So if you see any wealth manager, and there are so many of them today on this Zoom meeting, you want to cater to client needs because that's where your business comes from or practice comes from. But you also are responsible to achieve certain goals or targets which your organization gives because your salary, designation, job comes from there. And we felt this conflict is going to remain over here. And if we want to do something which is purely on the lines of what the client wants rather than what you need to sell, or create a client-centric model, there is no point changing the job because these are some of the finest brands which we were fortunate to work with. So thought was, why not quit and become an entrepreneur? Quit and become an entrepreneur, whereby you can launch the model purely around client centricity. And there was a huge opportunity because Indians are becoming richer. A lot of Indians are creating wealth. Earlier, it was restricted to very few business houses like Ambani's, Tata's, Birla's. But today, you look at it, senior corporate head, they are earning salaries in few crores of rupees. You look at professionals, they earn a couple of crores per annum. You look at sports stars, Bollywood stars, a lot of them, they are making money. Also, if you look at it, this new age entrepreneurs, typically who have come from the technology background, digital platforms, they have created substantial value. Bankers, investment bankers, private equity players. So a lot of people were creating wealth. And this wealth creation has gone hugely compounded at a very, very high rate because Nishant was mentioning how many people who are there above 25 crores today. That number is growing phenomenally. So one side we saw the opportunity, which is huge. And other side, there is a lack of client centricity or advisory capability or long-term approach in thinking. So we said age is on our side. Clearly, we have 20, 30 years ahead of us. Can we create a model which works purely around client centricity? And if your model is right, opportunity is there. We just need to marry the two. So that helped us to come out of the comfort zone. It was not an easy decision. It took us almost a year to take that bold step. Every time we used to think about putting in our papers and start something like this, some temptation used to come, some family pressure, friends pressure, well-wishers pressure used to come. But I think we were fortunate to take that decision. And it really helped. I will also share something which personally happened to me and which really helped me to take this decision. I was blessed with a baby girl in February 2002. February 2002, and when I was in the hospital, one of my clients, Mr. Rao, called up, and he heard that I am somewhere outside and he could place that I am in the hospital. He called up for some work. And when I shared the development with him, he says, Himanshu, congratulations. This is absolutely fantastic news. Great. I do not want to bother you. You now enjoy with your family. And while keeping the phone down, he said, Ab to Lakshmi ghar par aa gayi hai. Now, when he said that, Ab to Lakshmi ghar par aa gayi hai, Mr. Rao, that voice kept on echoing in my mind, thought process, heart throughout that day. And what I was thinking for almost a year, that day I determined that I am going to come out of the comfort zone, because that statement, Lakshmi Ghar Par Aa Gayi, gave me that push which was required. She was born on 21st of Feb. My notice period at the bank was 90 days. Client Associates was born exactly on 21st May, 90 days after that. So that actually gave me that jolt or that confidence to take this bold step.
Amazing story. Congratulations for it. And I mean, really Goddess Lakshmi at home, and which has started prospering. And indeed, not Goddess Lakshmi at home by being client associates. The two words, if somebody can, dig, you can go and think little deeper around. You need to take care of your client, and you be an associate with the client. And Goddess Lakshmi is not only with you, Goddess Lakshmi is with them. And it's like, we make money in the business by looking after the clients, not looking after the markets. That's the whole principle with which it has gone, and kudos. Now coming back with all our MFDs who are very keen to listen, is to get to your recipe of it. And many of the MFDs, some of them, they have niche, they can take care of only HNIs. And some of them, they have HNI part of their client list. And if you need to advise them in the large people, I mean, either they're predominantly HNI oriented, or their business is HNI. But I have seen some of them, they have their 20% of the clients who gives 80% of the business. These 20% are HNIs. For some of them, 80%, and very few are purely HNIs. As you rightly put it, 25 crores, that is what the definition of ultra UHN, ultra high net worth in Indians today. It is effectively, it's like, it's a $3 million in dollar terms. And I was going through Knight Frank Wealth Report, which is incidentally published yesterday for this, and where India it is growing. If you need to advise our MFDs, what are the things they need to do to acquire HNI clients? I'll start with acquisition, then I'll take it little later, how we can retain, how we need to deal. It's any recipe you would like to share.
I would say the best way to acquire an HNI client is getting a recognition from an existing client of yours. So word of mouth, that's the best way to get an entry, because today all the HNIs, a lot of people are chasing them. And this is a profession which is built on the foundation of trust. And if an existing friend or a family member says, I am working with ABC and I'm extremely happy and I can trust this person, that is one of the finest ways to acquire an HNI client. Second is also you need to be updated on the regular developments which are happening in the industry, because it's a knowledge-based profession. Knowledge is something which is the core or the strength. You need to keep reading, keep on acquiring knowledge, and also use various platforms, whether it is the conference, whether it is the platform like this, various platforms can you start sharing that knowledge so that people start relating with your thought process. And if they are able to relate with your thought process, your conversion could be faster. Also, I would say certain niche communities which are creating, doing very well. Let's say today, a lot of lawyers or a lot of entrepreneurs, or you talk about a community, authors, they're creating substantial amount of value. If I have to target a particular community, what should I do to get an entry over there? So those are some of the things which needs to be applied. But if you ask me, 90% plus success comes if your existing clients refer you to their friends and families. There the success ratio or the conversion ratio is very, very high. So you need to always keep thinking, my client comes first. I am their associate. I will only do what is in their interest. If you're able to do that and you're able to build that foundation of trust, that client can speak to 10 other potential clients for you. And that is the fastest way to grow in this space.
I think it's you have put it very rightly. The referrals is the way to go, and you always need to upgrade and upskill yourself. end of it, your intention is the client centric. I think, I think they can borrow the word of client associates, be associate of a client. Fantastic, well put it. But is there any special skill set is required beyond this? I mean, for acquiring the HNI clients.
So today, if you ask me, market is getting crowded because all foreign banks, they want to be in this space. Domestic banks, they want to be in this space. There are various national distributors which wants to be in this space. IFS, they want to be in this space. Everyone is getting into this space because everyone sees India is going through financialization of savings, more people creating more value. So there is a demand for something like this service. But again, over there, you need to really cater to a certain sophisticated market. What is your unique value proposition? So when we launched ourselves, we said family office is the unique value proposition. We will work on the holistic approach. We will work like a family office or a private CFO. And if any wealthy family you look at it, their needs could be around their businesses. Their needs could be around their property portfolio. Their needs could be becoming financially independent from their businesses. Their needs could be around the succession. Their needs could be take adequate insurance for the family. Their needs could be diversify beyond India. Their needs could be, I want to be a part of the ecosystem which is investing into unlisted space, which is creating a number of billionaires in our country. Now, if you can identify and create needs around this and develop the practice or specialization around these particular needs, your chances of getting 100% mind share of a client is very, very high. Because just to give an example, Mr. Rao, some of our clients, they may invest less than 5% into unlisted space, or they may invest less than 5% into LRS, which is outside India. But the mind share is exponentially higher over there. They may invest 50% in mutual funds, but mind share is much lower than 50%. So if you can capture 100% mind share, there's a very high probability that you can get 50 to 75% of the wallet share. That is something which is works very well. So you need to create that value proposition, and everyone, they can see what is the community which they are catering to, because the way we have defined our best clients, every advisor will have their own definition of best clients. And just identify the pain areas, just identify the needs or what clients wants, and then create your offering or value proposition around it.
I think it's very interesting and it's very challenging too, because today you can see when everyone is competing, when I have to compete as an MFD with a private bank, probably they have the best of the systems, the best of the process, and most of the RMs are very sophisticated. And this is again very now, I mean, earlier I can say private banker may missell you, but today in the transparent world, client is also very intelligent. Client understands things very faster. But in that, it's a transparent as well as a complex. And what is the values? What value do these clients expect from an advisor today? When you say unique value proposition.
So I would say clients want to deal with one, intelligent people, someone they can look up to, someone who is extremely knowledgeable, which means talent is very, very important. And that is something which is a big challenge in our industry. There's a shortage of talent because the industry has grown at about 25% in last 5 years. We used to be 13 lakh crores wealth industry. Mutual fund was 12 lakhs and 1 lakh was PMSs and all those put together. Today, it has become 30 lakhs of mutual funds and 10 lakhs of all AIFs, PMSs put together. So industry has grown at 25%. There is a need for talent. And so talent is something which is very, very important. Second, also clients, they need transparency in the relationship. They would like you to make money, but they would like to know how much money are you making and are you making it in a transparent manner or not. And that leads to building up of the trust. So as I mentioned, 3 T's, which are very, very important, is trust, talent, and transparency. It's a relationship of trust. Something what is dearest to most of the people is their life. Second biggest dearest thing is their wealth and hard-earned wealth. And that has to be built on the foundation of trust. And that can only happen if there is a transparency in the relationship and if there is a right talent which is available. So those are some of the things which clients look at it. And once they open up, unless you really goof up somewhere, they would not like to leave you. So my advice is client acquisition is tough, but if you can do it through word of mouth by working hard, just ensure that you stick to that purpose, broad path of client centricity. It's really a long-term approach. A client you acquire for 1 crore at some point in time can become 100 crores relationship for you also. And they would not leave you unless you have done something which is grossly not correct. So that's the way to succeed in this profession.
Yeah, I think it's very nicely put it. I repeat for the audience, we all need to remember these 3 T's in a big way in our life for HNI clients, or of course, ever any clients. I mean, the talent is the most important because things are changing fast. You need to upgrade and upskill every day. There is nothing called. And we are in the business of money. Business of money is always comes with the trust. There is always a trust. You know, it's that's where we need to look at. And our dealings need to be transparent. That's where your trust levels will always go up. And I know this is the evening tea time. Please don't forget to remember these 3 T's which have come from Mr. Imanshu. I mean, if it is an on-ground event, we would have served you a cup of tea at this point of time. And Imanshu ji, like, you know, I'll take you around when we look at HNI clients, we talk about HNI is already wealth created. You know, it's a wealth creation has happened to them, and of course, a lot of wealth being created. And the wealth preservation is equally important, and wealth transfer, which is happening in a big way across the globe now. And wealth transfer is that is going to create a lot of assets for MFDs or in this business of RIS, whoever. So there is no everything. But what is that primary goal of HNIs you feel when you are dealing with it? Is it wealth creation, wealth preservation, or wealth transfer?
I would say, Mr. Rao, actually a combination of all three. Someone who has created a certain amount of wealth, yes, they want to ensure that it's preserved. But they also want to ensure that it grows at a certain reasonable rate so that it can beat inflation. And yes, while they transfer it, they leave the legacy behind. They leave the next generation richer than what they inherited it. That is something which is very, very important. And you need to follow a combination of these approaches while you are dealing with HNIs. Yes, there could be exceptions. Someone would be absolutely on preservation mode. Someone could be purely running after returns. Someone is only bothered about succession, but those are exceptions. But general norm is people want wealth to be preserved and growing at a reasonable rate. And they want to leave a legacy behind. Maybe if they are able to compound their wealth over next 20, 30, 40, 50 years at a reasonable rate, they can actually leave something which is far, far more meaningful, which can go to the next generation and maybe a generation after that also.
Yeah, I think all the three play a vital role. It's very good. I mean, as an MFD, you know, again, I personally feel your skill should be around all the three. And one is to look at HNI. Probably you need to understand everything. I mean, you can't become a family office, but at least you can connect with that family in a very different way. And there is a changing in the trend in the HNIs looking at the product. It could be a growing relevance of ESG or growing and changing the as the market over last year. I mean, you know, last year and the fear of vaccine, it's fear of virus, now the optimism of vaccine. And there is a rally, there is a rotation now. Do you see any trends which are changing for the HNIs? And what kind of asset allocation strategy you adapt? And what is evolving, you know, it's on the HNI space?
So I would say, Mr. Rao, I am in this profession for now about 25 years. When I joined the profession, profession used to be selling IPOs and selling FDs. Then came the mutual fund. And then over a period of time, more sophisticated products under the umbrella of PMSs, AIFs, real estate structures, REITs, all these things have started coming into picture. One, you need to evolve over a period of time. If I look at India broadly, India is divided into three different categories. One is what we call as the Bharat, which is what is accompanies all the retail investors put together. They have a very different asset allocation mix. Second is HNIs, which are basically about 5 crores to 50 crores kind of a segment. And then there is an ultra high net worth oblique family office space, which could be 50 crores, 100 crores upwards kind of a. Now, if I talk about retail investors, still majority of the wealth is in physical assets like property and gold. And there is a very small portion towards equities. There is hardly any allocation towards international, or there is hardly any allocation towards alternates unlisted space. While if we come to HNIs, real estate has come down, but there is a higher exposure towards equities. Alternates is a small portion over there. And if I come to ultra high net worth or family offices, property is a very small portfolio of theirs. There's a large interest towards equity space, unlisted space, and international space. So those are the trends. So, and we were actually doing some computation of how these three different segments can compound their wealth. So someone who is 30 years of age, and let's say lives another 50 years, in the first category, they can compound their wealth at about 6 to 6.5% per annum. While in the last category, they can compound their wealth at about 12% per annum. Now, you may say it's a difference of only 5 to 6% per annum, but in 50 years, the power of compounding catches up. So your 1 rupee can be 27 rupees if it's in the first category in 50 years time. While in the second category, in the last category, 1 rupee could be 278 rupees. So that is the kind of a value creation which happens. So if you ask me, people are moving more towards financial assets now. As India is evolving, we will move more towards what China is, what Germany is, what UK is, what US is over a period of time. This trend started changing 5 years back, especially after demonetization. People are realizing the importance of SIPs. Besides Provident Fund, can we also have some debt fund portfolios? Why should we put everything into property or gold? That is something which people are realizing. And ultra high net worth is actually getting very, very excited about unlisted space, because that is something which is creating huge amount of wealth. In fact, I'll just share some data. Last year, there were about 18 billionaires which were added in our country. 18, which means every 20 days, there is a new billionaire which is born in our society. 17 out of these 18 were from new age businesses, entrepreneurs, mostly digital platforms. There were 120 ultra high net worth which were added last year, which means every month 10, every 3 days there is one ultra high net worth. And ultra high net worth is someone who is about $35 million upwards, which is roughly about 250 crores. Just imagine this way wealth is getting created over here. And a lot of people are saying, okay, fine, most of this wealth is getting created in new age ventures. So for family offices, that is one space which is catching up a lot of mind share today. Maybe about 25 to 50% mind share. 5 to 20% wallet share. It's happening over there.
Very interesting data points, and it is true. Like I stay in Bangalore and I see this the venture capital worlds and private equity world, and you can see the billionaires. Like started with when Infosys, we see these are the directors who made money, but today you have and thousands of people, like, it's but there is the question which always comes when it comes to this question. I'm purely asking on an MFD angle. How do they find the new clients, HNI clients for themselves? And that's the first question. And once they find, what is the way to deepen those relations? When you said, like, not the breadth but the depth, I mean, I thought these two questions is more relevant for them on the dealing with wealthy.
So how to first of all get an entry or foot in the door? Again, I think the biggest reason any HNI would entertain you is if their family or friends have a great experience of working with you. So word of mouth is something which can give you a foot in the door. Second, all HNIs are used to working with someone or the other, whether there are nationalized banks, specialized banks, distributors, national distributors. What is your value proposition which you bring on table? That is something which is very, very important. And third, I would say you can sometimes use a product-based approach. While you will go and talk about the holistic solutions which you can provide across various products or asset classes or across different services. But sometimes maybe a foot in the door starts with a very product, but don't restrict yourself to that product, or don't get restricted or get in the comfort zone of that product. Follow a very asset allocation driven approach. Technology sometimes could be a great enabler. So if you have a high-end technology which can really help, because today we have stopped going to a bank. I have not been to my bank for last so many years. I have an app which gives me power in my hand. So can you create an app or a technology tool for them to deal and let them exercise the power in their hand, whether it is information, whether it is transaction. Also, one of the biggest advantage which I feel IFA community has is an open architect structure, because you are not manufacturing any product. There is no conflict of interest. You bring the best of ideas, best of products, and best of managers to your clients. You're absolutely pure over there. So that is something which is extremely, extremely important. And I think we underestimate the importance of an open architect structure, because it is actually conflict free. Also, HNIs look at stability in the relationship. So today, IFAs, if they are working and they have a long-term vision, they can actually prove upon this point that I can work with you for next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. While you are going to grow, I want to grow with you. There will not be any instability in the relationship, which sometimes with larger institutions, that's a disadvantage. Because people keep on moving their jobs. As I mentioned, there's a shortage of talent. Industry has grown at 25%, while talent has not come in. So shortage of talent, everyone is in demand. But with IFAs, I think that is one very, very big comfort which they can give it to their clients. And clients also love client confidentiality. So dealing with one person, not too many people, knowing too much information, since it's a profession of trust and that helps to build a relationship, confidentiality is extremely, extremely important. So those are some of the things which will help you to get an entry. But more important, after getting an entry, how do you deepen the relationship and farm the relationship? So entry, I would say, is a hunting skill, while deepening the relationship is a farming skill. That is something which is very, very important.
Fabulous. I think the way you put things in a very simplified way, I really kudos to you. I mean, you are right. I think as an IFA, as an MFD, you have an open architecture, and most of them, they are serving for the generations. I think that's where they live great. I mean, people get that trust, and if they can work on that vision, and if they can have a single mission to take care of the client, and I mean, adding your 3 T's to it, I think they are in the place. Now let me move it to a little bit on the non-financial side, because in a family office, you always look at those part too. And wealthy Indians always have their needs. Like there is a philanthropy which is going up in a very big way, and the other side, some of them Some of these people, they look at their lifestyle management, and then you need to look on very different way of tax advising. And earlier I was talking about wealth transfer. Wealth transfer got an opportunity. At the same time, it's a very challenging. Some of these some of these ultra high net worth individuals, the kind of the issues which they face on the wealth transfer is not easier one. It's very, very difficult one. And in such scenario, how do you take care of those non-financial needs that become crucial not only to the deepening the relations, but even staying in that relation?
Right. So again, over there, it's actually hard skill set, which is maybe a knowledge about an asset class, about a product, uh, or about a particular service. But it's also a lot of soft skills which are required. Because if you go back to traditional days of India, there used to be Munshi, who used to work with Rajas. They used to be called as Sutradhars or Margdarshak. In today's language, they are called as counselors, philosophers, or a guide or a coach. So you need to actually have a holistic knowledge which can basically gain the confidence of the client, and you can inspire them, which can build this relationship of trust. So you can be their friend, you can be their philosopher, you can be their guide who understands, and most important, after understanding, take care of all their needs. So if there have been a situation where I have received a call from a client at 5 a.m. in the morning, maybe there is some emergency which happened. Uh, you wanted, he wanted some immediate help. Can you be looked up over there? There are times when they say, okay, fine, I want you to meet my children. Maybe some career counseling. Maybe if something happens to me, my family should know whom to contact to get all the information related to my wealth, because they have shared practically everything what is around their wealth. So you need to build a scope whereby there is a pull rather than you pushing. There is a pull that can you be perceived as a margdarshak or a sutradhar for the family, and thereby I would say building a holistic model which can cover about the tax advisory related investments, bookkeeping, their philanthropic needs, their financial planning, financial independence from businesses, financial independence from their jobs, uh, educating them about what is happening, what are the trends which are shaping up in our society related to wealth, counseling needs for their children. You need to read a lot. You need to become, I would not say the master, but you need to be a general practitioner. So it's more like a GP rather than a super specialist. And people can relate with that.
Yeah, fantastic. I think, you know, this is the right way. You are a financial coach, you are a financial counselor, or beyond the finance, a counselor, and you are a confident aid for them in the years to come. And now coming back at our audience, may I request each one of you to put your questions either in the chat box or Q&A. We would like to run through your questions before, probably I'll have a couple of questions to ask Mr. Manshu, and then we will take forward for your questions to you. Coming back to you, Mr. Manshu, these needs and aspirations of each of the clients are very different, and this UHNW, ultra high net worth individuals, I have seen there are CFOs, there are celebrities, and each of them come with a different backgrounds. And some of them, even I can say, the money which is a quick money would have come somewhere, and they become partly our clients. Sometimes we may like, sometimes we may not like, which is not easy. But how do you deal with a different kind of segment of clients? We are not measuring them only because there are 25 crores. The amount could be 25 crores, amount could be 50 crores, but their qualities, their backgrounds, their approaches, and their styles are very different. You get a lot of complications around.
So if you ask me, Mr. Rao, we have about 4 broad segments. One is your CXOs, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs of different organizations. That's a very good segment to work with. Second, entrepreneurs, new age entrepreneurs starting their ventures. Third is the professionals, which could be chartered accountants, lawyers, authors, sports persons, Bollywood. Fourth is family business owners. And some of these professionals, they're also celebrities. Now you need to relate with each one and say, okay, fine, what could be the pain areas or what could be the needs for each of these segments? So if I talk about CXOs, they are drawing a certain salary on a monthly basis, regular basis. They may be having an idea that they can work till 50 years of age, 55 years of age, 60 years of age. So they could be a certain time horizon, 10, 15, 20, 30 years for them to create that kind of a wealth. And their needs could be simple, that I want to maintain this lifestyle throughout my lifespan. So if I retire at 55 and I live till 90 years of age, next 35 years, how can inflation help me to maintain this lifestyle which I haven't got getting used to it? Second could be around their children needs, whether it's the best of education to be provided to them, whether it is their marriages or buying certain strategic assets for their family. So those are some of the needs which I would say CXOs have. So drawing a financial plan is very, very important, so that you know what are the goals, what does it cost to achieve those goals, which is nothing but the liability side of their balance sheet, and then what is their present wealth and what are their cash flows looking like it, so that future wealth also you arrive at the net present value and see how comfortably are they placed on this particular aspect. If I look at entrepreneurs, the lion's share of their wealth is in their ventures itself. And most of them, they feel very ambitious about their ventures, and rightfully so, because they've built up that. But at certain point in time, they start worrying, if my venture goes through a rough cycle, I need to diversify and become financially independent from my venture. And that is where they start creating a financial assets or a real estate portfolio, which can basically become like a safety net for them. So that is something which is a need for them. For family business owners, typically large families where there are different brothers, siblings, cousins, they are working together. Again, they are not able to relate with the difference between the personal wealth and the business wealth part of it. So first of all, making them realize the importance of a separate wealth, which is outside their business. That is something which is important. Second is maybe having a thought on the succession of the family's wealth or the business part of it. How management needs to be looked at separately than ownership part of it. Discussions around that, sometimes settlements, family settlements, role settlements, synergies to be built up in businesses so that business can go from one generation to another generation, or there could be a plan to create value and unlock value at some point in time and create a portfolio which can invest into new age businesses where disruption is happening. So their needs are more around diversifying beyond business, segregating private wealth versus business wealth, defining the role succession, and investing into new age businesses, which is creating those billionaires on a every 3-week basis. How do I participate in that growth story? Because traditional businesses are not growing at that rate. So those are the needs. While with celebrities, I would say typically a cricketer, let's say, they can sustain a peak of their career for 10 years. There are very few like Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli who could maybe live for 20 years, 25 years, but typically they peak out in 10 years. Same is the case with, let's say, Bollywood stars. They have a career span which is maybe 5 to 20 years, average is about 10, 12 years. Now, when they are in that system, ecosystem, one, their lifestyles goes through the roof. And the biggest fear is, I do not want to give away this lifestyle. There is an insecurity. So they may be in their peak for 10, 15 years, but they have to manage themselves for next 50 years. How do you ensure that while they are at the peak, they also get a sense of preserving what they are creating, and which can help them celebrate their lives throughout? because after their peak, there is a vacuum. And if they have not saved sufficient money, they go through a lot of depression. So financial planning or cash flow planning for them becomes exceedingly important. So I would say uh, needs around preservation, compounding, growth, succession could be there across all categories, but there are certain things which outweigh in one category versus the other.
It's very complicated, and all that what we need to do is you put it rightly. I mean, if I'm dealing with my HNIs, how I can bucket it them, where they can come, which bucket they belong to. And you also covered up a little bit of biases which they can lead in, the biases, as you said, if it is a cricketer or somebody, how I need to manage my lifestyle little later too. I mean, how I need to cater to it. I mean, it's a fantastic. And the last question I can ask, I mean, if there is this is a purely in terms of MFD angle, not exactly a family office. If you need to go back and address them, what are the three things advisors need to keep it in mind dealing with HNIs? Then I can go back for the audience questions.
So one, I would say, always remember client first. Client first, it's a long-term relationship profession versus a short-term transaction business. Don't look at how much revenues you make. Just see whether it will add value to my clients. Does it make sense from a client's point of view? If I have the money, will I invest in this idea? Which means whatever you eat yourself, you serve it to your clients. That is something which is number one. Second is have a very holistic approach, asset allocation driven approach, which brings in more discipline. And Mr. Rao, you are a veteran in this industry. I have come to you for guidance many a time. You know the importance of discipline, which it creates in the success. So there are various studies which have happened. And one of the studies which I can quote by Ibbotson, which says there are 4 factors which contribute towards the success of any investor. One is your strategic asset allocation. Second is market timing. Do I buy today or do I buy after a month or sell after a month? Third is product selection. Do I buy Aditya Birla product or ICICI product, or do I buy a Birla stock or ICICI stock? And fourth is luck. Now, 90% plus success comes if your strategic asset allocation is correct. While all the other 3, timing the market, stock selection or product selection, or luck, contributes less than 10%. While most of the clients, they spend 90% energies on timing the market and which product to buy and forget their big picture. So as an advisor, if we can address that holistic need about their asset allocation, and which brings in a lot of discipline. And so if that discipline was followed, maybe in March 2020, when market fell, people would have bought equities. And when now today market is at a new high, rebalancing would suggest sell some equities. While individuals, when they manage their own money, they were getting out of equities because there was a fear in March 2020. And today they are buying equities because there's a greed which is catching up. So discipline is extremely, extremely important. And third is, I think, looking ahead, what are the next 10-year trends which will shape up in our society? And I need to understand those trends and maybe acquire sufficient knowledge or learning so that I can advise my clients to walk those trends. So knowledge is extremely, extremely important.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for such a detailed answer, and you shared truly an insights. And as a MFD, as an advisor, probably you need to be we expect the markets and the future, but you need to become yourself, expertise how the future can look for you, and asset allocation always play a very vital role. Now coming back to the questions, I think here is an anonymous attendee. What digital expectations do clients have, and what kind of softwares you use it?
So I would say technology in this profession is becoming exceedingly important. It cannot replace you completely, but it can improve your productivity. So there are various angles in which you can use technology. One, in terms of sharing the information with clients. Let's say their portfolio, values, asset allocation, performance versus benchmark, maybe through a simple app. If technology can generate that, it gives a lot of power to clients. Second, while you're running your own business, uh, you also get certain MIS, which helps you to analyze the data. Technology can play a big role over there. Also, while you're doing some product selection or asset classes research, if there is technology, you can actually become far more efficient. Whether it is backtesting using Python, so that you can really analyze things, and it helps to aggregate the knowledge at a much faster pace. Fourth is in terms of operational ease. Uh, Earlier, we used to sign so many papers, sign so many checks, but today, just pressing the button, you can transfer the funds. No paperwork required. It's become far more efficient. So I would say technology cannot replace the trust element, which is most important in this profession. But technology can be a greatest friend of yours. You need to be more technology dependent if you are running your own shop. Uh, People are important, but if tomorrow one person leaves from your system, information, access to information, all those can be preserved very simply through technology. So I would say uh, if you can have a healthy combination of technology and human element or human capital, it's a very, very good thing. Only human capital will make you inefficient and unproductive beyond a certain point, and only technology will not give you or clients the comfort, because handholding is extremely, extremely important in this profession.
Thank you so much, Mr. Himanshu. I think rightly put it, the technology can help you to connect. It's a high, you can become high tech, and as a human capital, you can become a high touch, and both this together will help you to grow. Here is a question coming from Ms. Savita Goyal. Can you please explain what is that unlisted space where we can suggest what we can suggest?
So unlisted space is something where, let's say you invest in the uh, capital of the company, which is not a listed company. So let's say a new age, and there are different stages: incubation stage, seed stage, venture capital stage, private equity stage. So there are opportunities which happens, and there are different pockets. So let's say less than $1 million is at a very early stage. Then at a $5 million, it could be a, let's say, a Series C or something like this. $25 million, it could be a venture capital space. Now, you can participate in this either through a fund route or directly identifying the opportunities. So I would say, unless there is a large family office, direct route should be avoided. One should always prefer to go with the manager who is spending day in and day out with the team with the required skill set. Uh, because if you see US also, last 10 years, a lot of wealth is created by entrepreneurship. Your FANG, most of these ideas, they came from digital platforms, whether it is Facebook, whether it's Amazon, whether it is Google, most of these ideas. In India, a lot of these ideas are there. There are good companies, good businesses, but they are mostly in the unlisted space. Now, you want to participate, but you may not have the skill set, you may not have the bandwidth to identify and track those companies. So maybe if your wealth permits a certain size, because most of these opportunities comes under AIF, and the minimum size for the AIF is 1 crore rupees. So if you have a balance sheet size of 25 crore rupees, you can afford to give 1 crore rupees to one particular manager who can invest into these spaces on your behalf. And if you have more wealth, you can diversify across 2-3 different managers. And if you have much more wealth, then you say, okay, fine, I'll have a combination of few managers, and I'll also have a combination of direct opportunities through my team, which will evaluate certain spaces. So that's where the opportunity is.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Himanshu. Like, hope you have time. We are already exceeding. We are at 5:30. Can I take few more questions? How your time permits?
So I'm absolutely comfortable for next 15 minutes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it's now here is a question coming from Mr. Prabir Sharma. How do I get a mind share of my HNI client? What is that value proposition I can offer?
So again, you need to know your clients. What are their needs? What are their pain areas? So if you ask me, if you can understand their pain areas and then create a value proposition around it. So I can give you actually 1,000 case studies on this, because when we launched the concept of family office, we saw certain pain areas which were there in our clients' portfolios or their approach. I'll give you not 1,000 case studies, but one case study whereby we felt family office could really help this kind of a family. So there is I used to work for DSP, and there's a client who sold off a business, and it was a front page Economic Times news that a client has received 500 crores of wealth. 500 crores of wealth in 90s was a huge amount of wealth. Even today, by any standard, it's a huge amount of wealth. Client was not too much interested in physical assets. He had the challenge because he made that wealth very fast. At the age of 35, he created that kind of a wealth. And he basically wanted to invest in technology stocks. He wanted to invest in the markets because 98, 99, there was a tech boom which was happening. And since this news came on the front page of Economic Times, all the bankers started chasing them. And they met up with maybe few, less than 100 people, but 50, 60, 70 people, and got thoroughly confused what to do with their wealth. Finally, they decided to give the money to 10 bankers. And they thought they will diversify through that route. And they just kept 3 criterias on how the relationship will grow. So they gave between 40 to 60 crores to each outfit. 3 criterias were: 1, how often you meet me, I will increase the share. Because at 35, if you were used to working 16 hours a day and today you have sold out the business and there's a vacuum in your life, you want people to come and meet you and please you because you are a case study in the industry. Second, whosoever shows the new product first, I will invest through them. It's like keeping a handkerchief in a Bombay train that this seat belongs to me. That is something which will, so everyone was bringing NFOs, IPOs, left, right, and center. Everyone was thinking about how to grow their share with the client. Client wanted their advisors to be agile so that they don't become lazy. They are on their toes, and whosoever brings a new idea gets the allocation from them. And third is the performance. Every quarter, they used to highlight what the performance is. Whichever advisor is giving the highest performance will get the highest share. No one was bothered about the risk. No one was bothered about their asset allocation. Everyone was in the mode of meeting them on a daily, weekly basis, showcasing them products every now and then, whether it makes sense from their point of view. And third is, if I'm lucky, I'll give the highest performance and my share will go up. Then came 2000 when the markets corrected and there was a crash. And all the advisors who were knocking at the doors on a daily basis stopped showing their face. All the advisors who were showcasing new ideas got evaporated from the market. And performance, rather than positive returns, whosoever gives the lowest or losses is the favorite for them. Now, this is something which we spotted and we said, no, this actually doesn't help clients. It actually is more a problem. It's a pain. It's an unhealthy competition. Why not create a family office concept where you consolidate and give one picture to the client and have a disciplined approach? So like this, you need to identify. Similarly, we have case studies around succession issues. We had conflicts in the families. We created a model around that. Unlocking value from businesses. That was an opportunity. We created a model around that. Real estate, too much investments happening over there, left, right, and center. We felt it. Really find out what are the pain areas for your clients, and then start offering a value proposition basis that.
Okay, that's a very interesting case. I mean, I've seen such HNIs and who got sudden wealth and how they got confused and how they lost everything. And that's where the family offices can help in a great way. I'll move to the next question, which is coming from Sangeeta Javeri, which is a very interesting question. If all my referrals are exhausted, but still I want to expand my business, how do I prospect?
So Sangeeta ji, I would say take more and more references from your clients. In fact, we were also debating the other day, client acquisition is a challenge. And we said if we work with about 800 odd families, next 60 days, can we just focus on getting one more reference from each of our clients? And for that, it should not happen that I am going for a meeting or I am doing a review with a client, and in the end I say, okay, fine, give me a reference. Maybe some clients will not give you any reference. Some may give you 5 references also. But getting on an average 1 reference per client is a possibility. So can I identify those clients who can give me 5 references each? And I want to do a specific meeting, not on the portfolio reviews, not on any product idea, but just going and saying, I want to thank you for being with us. Last year was a year of volatility, but because we stuck to this process, it helped us. It has created value for you. I need your help because I want to grow my practice. I want to grow my business. Can you give me at least 1 reference? Just specific agenda on having a meeting around reference. And you will be surprised because clients also love people who are very entrepreneurial by nature, who want to grow in life and who want to grow in the right manner. And take more and more references. The references which have been exhausted, have patience over there, stay in touch with them through either some new services or new knowledge ideas which are shaping up, or maybe a new product which you have a huge conviction in. Maybe go and discuss those things with them. I'm sure you will be able to acquire few clients through this process.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal idea. It is a so good idea. Like, each one can give 1 reference that can become a huge, I personally feel. I mean, I'm sure Sangeeta ji, we never exhaust our referrals because that keeps coming in. Only the approach need to undergo a little change. And here is one question. I mean, I don't know whether it's Mr. Rochelle Captain. I mean, Captain, thanks for your comments. We will share the recording little later, and it will be available on the Cafe Mutual platform. Here he's asking, HNI clients are always apprehensive about sharing their portfolio, how to overcome that. Second, all the products and services largely same service by all of us. I mean, how do I can create my USP as a differentiating factor? Third is, they want to deal with a brand, but not with an individual. How do I counter that?
Okay, so let me address the last one first. That if I want to deal with a bank, I do not want to deal with an individual, because wealth is actually a business which is a people-to-people business. It's a connect business. Now, can someone say if I'm dealing with a bank, my relationship manager over here will be there for next 5 years, 10 years? I would say very less probability. I also deal with a bank. My relationship manager over there changes every 3 to 6 months. I cannot become comfortable with a new person every time and start sharing my information with them. So what you carry is a huge amount of stability, which you can emphasize on and say, this is something which will be a USP if you deal with me rather than a bank. I am looking forward to work with you for next 5, 10, 20 years. And I am not over here with a short-term transaction approach. I am here with a very long-term relationship approach. I am not here to push you any product. I am here to offer a service which can help you to meet your objectives in a very organized manner. That is the way you can go about it. I'm sure some clients will see the value in this proposition. There is no product push, but there is a holistic advisory, which is what I am here to offer you. So that is the way you can address the issue of bank versus as an individual. Can you repeat the other two questions, Mr. Rao?
Yeah, I'll shift there. I think I just moved out of it. Um, most of us will all offer the similar kind of products and services. How do I create my differentiator? And the first question is may not be very relevant because apprehensive about sharing their portfolio. We can't share one portfolio to other. Rather, we will deal with the confidentiality. But how do you bring the USP typically when
So I can talk about it. How do we bring it? Let's say client confidentiality is extremely important. As I mentioned today, we have a team of about 150 of us, 125 professionals. We follow some of the best practices in this profession, which is a 4I principle, which means always there are two people attached on the relationship and their information is confidential only with those two people, which means those 4 I's, because the moment it goes beyond those two people, then it becomes a public information. So you need to actually establish systems and practices whereby confidentiality is maintained. You sign an NDA, you give an agreement undertaking to them that this is something which will remain confidential with these two people who will be working. And why two people or 4I principle? Because if let's say one is traveling or one is unwell, our client's work doesn't suffer. But more than two, it becomes a crowd and confidentiality gets diluted. So some of those practices will help clients to gain confidence that you are following some of the best practices. And they may then want to share their portfolio. If it still takes longer, maybe say, okay, fine, let me start with a certain asset allocation on your portfolio. Give me 10% of your portfolio. And I want to start with a 10% portfolio asset allocation approach. Have patience, start offering value to them. Once they start seeing the value, once they start meeting you, and let's say in next 2 years, they have done 20 meetings with you, trust level will increase. So there is no shortcut in this. You have to be patient. You have to be a hunter to get an entry. But more important, have the patience and then become a farmer. And that farming will happen by more and more meetings. And that farming will happen by intellectual capital, which you can exchange, by the softer skills, which you can develop, by the new ideas, which you can share with them, new asset classes, which are emerging. They may not invest, but at least they can relate that my advisor is keeping updated on what is happening in the society. And this is the right kind of an advisor I have got.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Himanshu. I think I've already exceeded the lot time more allocated than by you. I mean, what I can do is I'll stop. Otherwise, these questions will go on. And I'm sorry, friends, we could not take all the questions. Some of them are not. Because of the paucity of time. But it was a wonderful interaction. There were a lot of feedbacks which are coming in. To say thanks for a wonderful session. We shared the recording, but thank you so much for sharing your insights. I mean, to learn from your story from 2002 when you start. Probably if somebody is looking at today as an HNI acquisition, one need to have that entrepreneurial mindset first and identify that opportunity which you have done. And kudos to you, your daughter. I think Goddess Lakshmi around, and apart from that, Goddess Lakshmi, you need the Goddess Durga too, because courage to act. I mean, it's not easy, and that is an inside of you which has come. And the last 18.5 years story is something around perseverance and a wonderful grit around. And it is like the way you built your team. It is somebody said very rightly, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with your team. I think you have built such a wonderful team. And the biggest message of your 3 T's during today's tea time, one need to build the talent, one need to build the trust, and all that is coming out of the transparency. If you marry these 3 T's, I'm sure we are arrived. And as a client associates always focuses on client goals. and it's delivering on their core expectations. That's a core competency. And communicating the value proposition for HNIs makes them dealing with more comfortable, and providing them the meaningful advice, and working on their mind share, and going beyond the investment avenue is the way where you can stick your business to around. Probably this is to quickly grasp on essence of what you spoke, but it's a lot to get. People can listen and listen that can build their HNI business in a big way. Sincere thanks to you for sparing your time. It's great to associate, and I wish Client Associates to grow much bigger and bigger. And today you are in 6 metros with 830, but I feel it can go much bigger. Even now, the ultra high net worth individuals coming from type 2 too. I mean, it's probably you have a huge scope to expand, and all the good luck. I'll invite Nishant around it. But thanks a lot for your
First of all, thank you, Mr. Rao. You have always been extremely helpful, very generous with your feedback. We really need your good wishes, your support as we go forward and working towards our dream of building one of the most admired platforms. I hope someday we'll achieve that. It's a journey, and we are thoroughly enjoying this journey by having friends like you. So thank you so much for your kind words and help, what you have always extended to us. And Nishant, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to be over here and sharing my thoughts with my family, because wealth industry is my family, and I'm very happy to share my thoughts with each one of my family members over here.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor. I mean, God bless you. Nishant, you can come and take over, and we wishing all of you a wonderful time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay wealthy. I'm sure, you will not only get HNI clients, you all, I know some one way you are HNIs. I wish you, each one of you can also become UHNIs. That's where probably Knight Frank Wealth Report can soon say this many financial advisors are part of this UHNI.
Thank
Nishant,
you.
would you like to join?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Rao and Himanshu, for that insightful session. As always, Mr. Rao, you have covered all the important questions that would immensely help our audience. And you have given justice to the topic, Mr. Kohli. It's great to listen to you. And finally, I thank all of you for joining us.
And don't forget, he is Mr. Kohli. That's a Kohli for our industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.